Hi, everybody. This is Margie Meacham. Welcome to another edition of the Brain Matters podcast. Today, I have with me Brent Schlenker. He is the host of the Training Development and Learning Conference that's taking place in San Diego in October. And I found it very exciting. I am going to be participating. There are some different things about this conference that I think are going to help us rethink why we go to these things and what we should be getting out of it. So, Brent, the first question I'm going to ask you is, why do we really need another conference?
That's a great question. And first of all, thank you, Margie, for having me on your podcast. Another event, yes. Well, I think the best way to answer that is that it's not just another event. I like to think of what's been put together as something different enough that can be thought of as something in addition to all of the other events that are going on. So I've been attending events for a long time. I've been producing events. I did it for a few years. I've heard a lot of rumblings behind the scenes for many, many, many years about what people would like to see in an event and what they've kind of gotten disillusioned with, and just things like that. Nothing really super negative, just kind of wish lists of what an event should be. And after years of chatting with all of the other events and not really seeing any change, I just realized that once I had the opportunity to host the TLDC, this was our chance to show people that an event can be different, and especially from learning and development professionals, right? The ongoing joke always seems to be that shouldn't we of all people be doing events differently and better than the sage on the stage, so to speak? And we shouldn't we know how to do learning events better than other people putting on events? So just after taking all of that to heart, we just decided that there's absolutely room for something that's different and another niche in the learning and development event industry.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, that's what caught my eye about how you've designed this event is that, and as you know, I work to help people apply neuroscience to enhance learning and performance. And I noticed decisions that you've made that are very what I call brain aware, that we're starting to incorporate now that we know more about how people really learn and how they change behavior. We should, as you said, the learning profession, it ought to be showing in our work, in how we're building things. And if we can't do it for ourselves, how are we going to be able to do it for anyone else? So let's talk about a couple of the things that you've intentionally done that are different, that when someone goes to this conference, they're going to notice.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. There's a bunch of things that I could, start listing off, and I think that might bore people. You could find all of that on the website, but I'd be really interested to hear what was it that, what was it that you saw or that stuck out for you as something that, wow, this is going to be different.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the reflection space jumped out first of all.
Yeah.
It really, now I talk a lot about the importance of reflection because, and I love that you put the Dewey quote right on your site, because I was just talking with someone about it the other day and I was able to go back to your site and get it exactly. So way before we had a neuroscience discipline, we had educational psychology, which is still very, very relevant today. And John Dewey said, and I'm paraphrasing, nothing is learned until we reflect on it. And we know that is so true. Now that we know how the brain processes information, it holds things in short-term memory and until the environment or a conscious decision tells that brain, hey, this is something I want to hold on to. And so there's only so much we can hold in short-term memory, and it has to get moved out to allow the next batch of information. So if you don't take a pause and sit back and say, what did I learn? What am I going to do with this? How does this integrate with what I already know? Does it change it? Does it add to it? Does it raise questions? And make a note of that, not just a mental note. I mean, a literal handwritten note, because that's another thing we know is that when the brain writes things down by hand, it engages far more neurons. So than say typing or just thinking about it, and then
Yeah.
say it out
So I
loud to
think,
someone else. Yeah. So
yeah,
that
that
whole thing.
active reflection. I think people hear the word, and I'm glad you picked this one out, because this is kind of a scary one, a little bit, for me, because I think it's fluffy for a lot of people, right? I mean, I think, when somebody goes to their manager, excuse me, and says,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'd really like to go to an event this year and get some personal development," and when they see something like the Reflection Center or something like that, I think to maybe to management and even to some attendees looking at it, they might kind of look at that and see that as fluff and as, oh, isn't that cute, and isn't that kind of nice and special for everyone to go relax and all of that. But we know, and this is great to be able to talk to you about this, because, and I obviously am not a researcher of neuroscience, but I have read enough about it to know how important all of what you just said is to learning, and the fact that in a lot of our corporate training we don't incorporate opportunities for reflection, and I rarely hear people talking about it as part of their design process, and giving those learners an opportunity to relax and reflect on what's been learned. It almost feels like people think that it's a waste of time, right? If you stop the class to do a little reflection on something you already talked about, people feel like, oh, that's redundant and you're wasting company time and you're wasting my time. But in fact, to your point about the science behind it, is you're not. It should just be part of the process. And that's hard for people to understand and to get their mind around, because, we've done training the way we've done training for so many decades that it's hard for people to kind of wrap their brain around something new and different. So I think it's fantastic too, and I'm very, very excited that we were able to get you on board, and to hook you up with Jennifer Lebret, who's going to be also managing that space and helping us really just sort of, and not just tell people about reflection, right? Like they can listen to this podcast and they can hear us chat about it, but at the TLDC, they're going to be able to experience it for themselves firsthand, and be able to really get a feel for what their learners should be doing, because we're going to be doing it. We're going to be, and everything that people learn at the event, we are going to be baking in little reflection opportunities right there. I think part of the neuroscience is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the active recall, right? For the spaced repetition and things like that is a big part of what happens when you do sit and reflect, right? Forcing yourself to recall some content and to ponder it a little bit more deeply is part of what solidifies that bit of content that you learned before it gets shuffled out to make room for more. I don't know if I got that right or said all the words right, but I think that's the gist.
Absolutely. And yes, you got it all right. I'm glad you mentioned Jennifer. For folks listening on the podcast, you might remember that I've also got a newsletter article that came out prior to this podcast where I talk about what we're doing in the Reflection Center. And Jennifer Leblanc, who is the co-founder of Be Well, focuses very heavily on mindfulness, reflection, and journaling. So it's a perfect match. And there's a method. I think that's one of the most important things for folks is there are techniques that we know work best for making that reflection active and cementing that learning. And so it goes a lot more. While people will find this a relaxing space, it should be kind of a stark contrast from the go-go environment of, oh, all these hundreds of people, and I've got to rush here and I've got to rush there. So that alone is valuable on a personal level, but it's different than that because we're going to be leading people through exercises that they can use anytime to cement their learning, to put it into their courses, or just use in their personal life to take that step back. And there were actual processes to this. They're simple, but they are important. So learning how to reflect, I think, is a smaller piece of learning how to learn, which we don't do as well in corporate training as they're starting to do other places. But
Right.
this conference really stands out. That was one of the biggest things that stood out for me. So I'm excited. We're on the same wavelength there. You've also got a really interesting lineup of speakers, and maybe you just want to share with the folks a few of the speakers that they're going to see at the conference.
Yeah, it's it was interesting to make these selections, to be honest, because we wanted to try to, like you mentioned earlier, we wanted to bring in the familiar with the new and interesting. And so we were very lucky and feel very blessed to have as our familiar face and name at the event, Allison Rossett, who is just one fantastic speaker, a fantastic advocate in our industry. And I've known her for a long time. But the even better than that is she and I have had a few conversations, and she is going to be talking about something like everybody probably knows her. Of all of her performance support work that she's been doing for years. Quite honestly, she was using the word performance support and talking about that is what we should be doing way before it became a trendy thing. I remember being a very green, fresh out of graduate school instructional designer, and seeing her speak at a conference for the first time, and nobody else was talking about the things that she was talking about. She was way ahead of her time. And so it's great to have her there, but she's not going to be talking about the same old, stuff that you may have seen her talk about in the past. She's going to be talking about the idea of happiness. And I don't want to spoil it too much for people. And I know, again, that might be another topic that sounds and seems a little bit fluffy and maybe not so practical, but I can guarantee you that she's worked some fantastic practicality into why this is important for us as learning professionals, especially in these times of conversations around, changing and shifting our organizations into learning organizations, and what are the pieces of that, and what does that mean. And she has some fantastic thoughts and ideas around that. So Allison is our rock, our standard, our stable, L&D corporate training professional, that is a fantastic speaker that will be, hopefully she's our comfort zone for people. They can see Allison and go, oh yes, I do know and recognize her. So at least I see that coming. And then we have Brian Fanzo, who's a good friend of mine from, geez, I guess 5 or 6 years ago now. It's been since I hired Brian in a training role. So most people, if you're into social media, and or into streaming video and anything live, online, social, Brian is the guy. His tagline is "I social fans," and his main tagline is "Think like a fan." And he's been building his personal brand and building brands for other individuals and for other very large corporations for several years now. And he is one of the hardest working guys in social media and has learned more about how it works, and better, faster, cheaper than anybody I know. And so the interesting that you'll get from Brian at TLDC is the fact that he does come from a training background. Now, not academically, but I'll tell you that the reason why I hired him, when he and I first met, and I was building a training department, I knew he did not have any official academic, degreed training skills, but all of his experiences in his past life, which is fascinating, working in government security software and things like that. It all pointed to a guy who had just the natural, innate skills that we try to teach people to do. He just knew how to do it. He knew how to engage an audience. He knew how to engage learners. He knew about being active and hands-on to get these guys and gals to to learn this new software, especially when they're out inside a big tent in the middle of Afghanistan, or and they've got a satellite system set up, and they have to learn this software and whatnot. I mean, he's done some fantastic training, and he did some fantastic training for me as well. And so I got to see him live and in action, and he and I got to work together on a lot of projects. And so it's just been really fun to see how he's incorporated all of that training experience into his new role as really a social media evangelist and brand maker, and proponent for some of these very, very large companies. And of course, we
Yeah.
have Malia Probst, who is probably another name that people aren't too familiar with. But if anybody has been following virtual reality, you may have come across her name in her podcast. She's also part of a large and still growing virtual reality community in the Los Angeles area. It's really, LA's sort of become the hub of virtual reality, and all of the innovation and all of the technology that's going on there. And so she has a front row seat to this sort of just amazing new world of virtual reality and augmented reality and everything that goes into that. And so she's she's going to bring some perspectives to that you don't necessarily, you won't see in the mainstream media, some of the stuff that's going on. And I think she will open your eyes to this new technology, and really, anybody that's out there thinking that virtual reality is still a few years away, or a decade away even. I think, once you kind of see what's going on right now and what's possible today for, relatively little money compared to what virtual reality used to cost, I think you may start to, think about looking into it a little bit more deeply. And not to mention, she's just a fascinating person and an incredible speaker, and a great personality. So I'm really psyched about our three, our lineup for sure. And then of course we also have Julian Stodd, who's another sort of standard flag bearer in the L&D industry, and I think people have seen him at other events before as well. And he is also very much connected to the idea of reflection and needing, our industry needing to do things differently and to change, and how does that happen. So he's got a book. He'll be doing a book signing there as well. And kind of while I'm on a roll, I'm sorry, I'm eating up all the time, but I did want to make one interesting connection between Malia and the Reflection Center, right? I think a lot of people, when they think of reflection, it's very soft, sort of a non-technical thing, and it can be. But with virtual reality, there is a lot going on in the personal health and meditation and reflection space, utilizing a virtual reality experience. And so the interesting connection between the Reflection Center and what we're calling the mixed realities experience, the MXRXP, there is definitely some overlap. And we're going to be talking a lot about that, how this new sort of futuristic technology also combines with the Reflection Center. People may see that as two totally separate and individual things, and it's like, wow, why have a whole virtual reality area and a reflection area? That doesn't seem like they would connect, but they do. They connect very strongly, in fact. So just very, very, very excited about the fascinating mix that we have available to us, and just not to mention the rest of the speaker lineup. I mean, you got to hit the website and click on speakers to see the really powerful program that's been built.
Absolutely. And the diversity that is there. You asked me at the start what things jumped out to me, and I keyed in on reflection, but the other one was definitely virtual reality, which I'm also very interested in, as well as the diversity of speakers. So I think that sums it up. And the best way for people to find out more is to go to the website. So there's just one more thing before we give them that important piece of information that I just wanted to add to what you've been saying, Brent, and that is that we use these terms soft skills and hard skills in our profession to kind of distinguish. And I think we might have done ourselves a disservice because um, there's really nothing soft about critical thinking or
Yeah, yeah, no, good
you
point.
know being a lifelong learner or being a terrific leader. And that's one of the things we've learned by studying the brain. We can drive it down. We're beginning to understand it, not just at the macro level of, we see signals being passed from neuron to neuron. We are seeing it down even to the atomic level, because to generate that electricity, things happen with the atoms in your brain, and quantum physics is starting to be involved in brain science. So, brain science is actually many sciences because it takes all of them to understand the brain, and they're all hard science. So, that means the skills that we are teaching people, all of them are hard skills. Just like I said, there's a process to reflecting, there are specific known processes. And I think that's one of the big changes we're going to see in our profession in the next 5 to 10 years, is that concept of soft skills actually goes away as we get more and more insight into how someone acquires those skills and expresses those skills. And we see there's really no difference inside the brain from exhibiting a particular communication skill versus, maybe manipulating a software app. So that's kind of a pet. I was going to say peeve, but it's probably more just a pet opinion of mine.
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I just started thinking that I feel like I've left out the most important thing in my mind about the event and why we're doing it, and what's going to happen. This one of the things I've focused on very, very, very heavily and talked to everybody involved about is that I want it to be skills based and tactical, right? And very much the work that we do. This is the part that's really been a pet opinion of mine is seeing so many sessions after so many years, from keynotes all the way down to general sessions to uh, just conversations. Even there is a lot of theory that we discuss, and there is a lot of just people's opinions and ideas that get presented on a stage. And that's all good. It's all well and good. And we are absolutely going to have some of that too, because, you need to, light a fire for certain things. But I think there needs to be a better balance at events. And so what we've done is, basically told everybody that we absolutely need this to be brought down to the tactical level after you're done presenting what it is, the thought, the theory, the backing behind it or whatnot. We want to get right into the hands-on. How is this going to help? How is this going to apply to the work that you do? And so the intent is that you're going to come to this event with some of your big challenges, and we're going to work as a as a smaller event. We have this ability, right? I don't think larger events can do this, but we're going to work and to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get answers to those questions and to help solve some of their biggest challenges. We're going to be working on action plans. We're going to help people build the solutions that they're looking for. And I don't mean that from a vendor perspective. I mean from, what are you going to do when you get back to the office to actually execute on a plan. And I think, traditionally people, we'll get back, we'll say, oh, I'm just going to, I'll do my review and reflection and thinking about all this stuff that I learned on the plane back to the, when I'm leaving the event. And more often than not, you are so burnt out, you are so overwhelmed, and you've just consumed so much information and had so many conversations. You're really, you're exhausted. And then you think, you're on the plane, you're tired. You think, well, I'll just do it when I get back to the office. And then you get back to the office and the projects are all stacked up and you've got people hounding you to get back to work. And the opportunities just kind of pass. And so we are going to make a concerted effort to talk more about the work, the actual work that we do, and help people define the work that they do. And we've devised an interesting circle, or rings of focus, we call it, right? With the user at the center and their personal development. We're going to be talking about that. What does learning and development mean to you? Where are you in your career? Where do you want to go next? We want to help you work on that. And if that's the main focus, if that's why you're at TLDC, then we've got people to help take you to the next level and move you through your career. The next ring out is your projects, right? What do you get better at working on your projects, whether that means, project management skills, technical skills, picking solutions, whatnot. There's anything around that project area. We've got focuses in that area. And then the next ring out is the teams, right? How do you function on a team? How do you build a team? How do you lead a team? How do you be more effective on the teams that you're on? And then, of course, the next ring out is the organization. How do you as a training department function within the larger organization that you are in? How do you deal with your IT department? How do you deal with HR? How do you deal with legal? How do you deal with your stakeholders? We'll have conversations around that area. And then, of course, the widest outer ring is our industry, right? What can we do and what can we talk about, and what active things can we do to help move our industry forward and to really become a cohesive community that is all helping each other move forward and to do the work of the training profession.
Okay, all great reasons why somebody should go to TDLC, and definitely look for me. I'll be in that reflection area and, of course, all through the conference quite a bit. We've been talking to Brent Schlenker, who is the host of TDLC. And where can they find out more about that, Brent? What's the website?
Well, it was just they can get to the website at tldc.com. So it's the Training, Learning, and Development Conference. So tldc.com. Is I know, and people get it sort of mixed up all the time. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but that's okay. And you can also, follow the Facebook page. We have a LinkedIn presence. We also have a Twitter handles. So, definitely get connected there. We also have some discounts available to those who maybe find, registering for an event to be a little bit of a financial hardship. It's the value is I have no doubt people will walk away with way more value than they've ever taken away from an event. So I know the value is there, but I do know that, there are a lot of people out there just in putting on this event. I've discovered that there's a lot of people out of work right now. And, we're working with them to make sure that if they can, if they can afford the travel costs, then we'll make sure there's a way to get them there. So if you've got any sort of hardship at all, or you really want to attend and you really want to be a part of this sort of inaugural event and be a part of the launching of this new event and community, then just contact us directly from the website, and we are more than happy to work it out with you. Bring your team, have a team building events. We can work out discounts for that as well. We're very flexible when it comes to that. So that's the other thing. We're not I don't think anybody that's part of the event is everybody's out to do this just out of course, everything that you do at an event costs money, so we have to tie expenses to everything. But nobody's in this to become a millionaire or to build something new. It's a need that some very interested um, members of the community wanted to do and launch, and we've just seen it not change for a long time, and we just decided to pull the trigger. So yeah, there will be more to come. Don't get me wrong. This isn't just a one and done. We are definitely, making plans for future events for sure. But the first one is always special, and so if you'd like to be a part of it, just contact me directly if you need to. I'm B Schlenker, BSCHLENKER on Twitter, or you can connect with me at Brent at the TLDC.com. Shoot me an email, and I'll make sure you can get to the event.
Okay, thank you, Brent. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And I hope that I see you out there at the conference, as well as on Twitter and the rest of social media. And thank you again for another issue of the Brain Matters podcast.